Thank you, Daniel. That was really a beautiful and I think a perfect way to begin this morning. I also would just like to say that Daniel is a first-year medical student, and he specifically wrote that this morning as a tribute to you. So this is original. We always knew today was going to be an important and well-received event, and I think today's attendance proves just that. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to our Willed Body Memorial Service. My name is Mark Brooks, and I am the director of the Willed Body program. And let me just begin by saying, on behalf of the School of Medicine, Willed Body program, faculty, staff, and class of 2021, I want to express my sincere thanks to each of you this morning. As a program, we tell families and people who inquire about donation all of the time, we cannot do what we do without donations. And today I think you're going to hear just how true that is from the many speakers that we have this morning. But what is also true, and we don't say this enough, we can't do what we do without the support of folks like yourself, who support them in that decision to be a donor, because it's a family decision. And we recognize this morning that it is important to acknowledge that you are a very, very important part of it, because ultimately you entrust them into our care. You see, today is meant to recognize the integral value that every donor gift serves to the University of California, but it's also meant to acknowledge you for giving us the privilege of benefiting from your loved one. I have had always the honor and many days the joy, not every day, but many days, the privilege and really the blessing of being able to work in this program. I have worked here for close to 16 years. And on those days that everything seems kind of just right, and I'm able to look past, the many stressors that comes with the job and the realization of the frailty of life, and I can see things clearly, I realize that I'm really in a very fortunate and blessed position. In fact, I often tell people I have the best job on campus, to which people usually look at me like I'm crazy. They think, my gosh, how could you as a Willed Body program director think you have the best job on campus? But it's because I get to see the importance of donations to provide tools to scientists that are going to benefit communities not just in the far-off future, but will benefit us today. I get to see how students benefit from donors in learning complex anatomy that they wouldn't otherwise learn. And I get the deep satisfaction of knowing that we've done everything that we can to do to facilitate educational research uses. You see, as a program, that's really kind of our way of saying thank you. We say thanks when we support undergraduate anatomy. We say thanks when we support allied health students, the opportunity from area colleges to benefit from the gifts to the University of California, Irvine. We say thanks when we allow graduating paramedic students the opportunity to do airway exercises before going out into the field, which could save lives. We say thanks when we allow our ultrasound students in the community to come, and while they know anatomy as an image, this is their opportunity to see below the surface of the skin the anatomy in its actual form. We say thanks when we provide advanced anatomy opportunities to graduating students who are going on to specialize in different parts of medicine. We say thanks when we support residents as a teaching hospital. We say thanks when we provide opportunities for physicians, not just at UCI, but around the community, across the state, throughout the country, and even the world who benefit from our donors. We also say thanks when we allow so many of the local colleges that rely on the generosity of UCI donors to support their mission. It's a big mission. A lot of people are relying on it. In fact, the gift is really great. It's extraordinary. Think about it. You know, that word gets used a lot, but only about slightly over 1% of people around the United States make the decision to be a donor to the medical school. That, by definition, makes it an extraordinary gift. When I'm out and about and people find out what I do, the question that they always ask me is, well, where do you get the bodies? Who are the donors? Which at first I thought was kind of an odd question, right? Why aren't people asking me about the purpose or about the interesting things that I get to see or the new technologies that result from donation? But no, people ask me, where did they come from? And as I thought about that question, I realized that what was really impacting people is that they were recognizing immediately the rare and brave choice it was to be a donor. You see, more than the anatomy and the science that we support, what people were immediately picking up on is the rare and brave choice it was to be a donor. The decision itself was the thing that was leaving an impact on them. Winston Churchill said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." You see, donors not only teach us important anatomy, they give us many, many anatomy lessons, but let's face it, a lot of those lessons will be forgotten. Some of those lessons will be forgotten as soon as they take the exam, but what is not going to be forgotten is the subjective experience. You see, what won't be forgotten is the knowledge that someone made a choice for them. That's a legacy. That's a lesson that won't be forgotten, and that's a lesson this morning we want to celebrate. Next, please welcome to the podium our Dean of the UCI School of Medicine, Dr. Michael Stamos. Dr. Stamos joined UCI in 2002 and established the Department of Surgery's Division of Colon and Rectal Surgery and its residency program. From 2010 to 2016, he served as professor and the Johnny Conley Chair in Surgery. Prior to coming to UCI, he spent 11 years at Harbor UCLA Medical Center while also serving as its Chief of Colon and Rectal Surgery at the VA West Los Angeles Medical Center. Now serving as our dean since 2016, Dr. Stamos has been an enthusiastic supporter of the Willed Body program and its impact on medical education.
Thank you, Mark, and thank all of you for being here today. I am truly humbled by this moment and this opportunity. I think all of you are here because of your loved ones, and I want to confirm with you their extraordinary contributions to health. Your choice of UCI as a place to make a difference is one that I'd like to validate by giving you a little bit of background information about our program. I would say that your loved one chose an institution that is ascending the ranks of the nation's finest academic medical centers. Just yesterday on this same stage, we had a chance to have match day where our graduating medical students learn where they will spend the next 3 to 7 years of their life training and honing their crafts. And so that's, to a certain extent, the full circle, because today we have our first-year students here, first and second-year students, first year, yes, helping to host this event. So we are climbing the ranks of the U.S. News and World Report and other systems of ranking. We are among America's best hospitals and one of the top 50 medical schools for research, according to that organization. More than 7 dozen, more than 85 physicians on the list of best doctors in America for the current year, and that number is increasing every year, all of whom are here at UCI to help us develop a new generation of excellent physicians. A UCI medical education is clearly amongst the best in the country. Here in the Susan and Henry Samueli College of Health Sciences, we also have students, in addition to in medicine, in nursing, in public health, and in pharmaceutical sciences, who are sharing training experiences, instilling a spirit of collaboration and teamwork that will ultimately impact patient care. Here, technology makes our students better learners and better physicians, but it's not a substitute for the human touch. We were the first in the country to introduce a tablet-based digital curriculum. Our students, when they enter school on day one, have an iPad loaded up with the curriculum. We're a 4-time Apple Distinguished Program because of our use of technology. We're preparing medical students to use the modern doctor's bag with devices such as smartphone spirometers to measure pulmonary function, portable ultrasound machines that are now the size of an electric razor and soon not to be much more expensive than them, and electronic stethoscopes that hone the information we get to better serve our patients. Why does all this matter to you? Because your loved one was part of it, a vital partner in preparing the best and brightest to provide world-class health care. Yesterday we heard that of our 100 or so students that graduate every year, it's 104. Some of them go on to get a PhD and other degrees and other programs, but of those that matched into residencies yesterday, 75% of them will stay in California. So we are indeed supplying the physicians that will be taking care of the citizens, not just of California, but predominantly of California. Many who train here go on to build careers in the local community, caring for our families, friends, and our neighbors. Some find their passion in underserved and rural communities. In fact, that's a big part of our training, particularly in the Department of Family Medicine. Others strive to make a difference through humanitarian organizations or as physician scientists in top academic institutions, including our own. Your friend or family member, your loved one, inspires us all through their generosity. They have helped tomorrow's physicians become better prepared to care for others, and that elevates the level of health care wherever they go. As a member of the UCI team for now 16 years, Mark and I actually arrived here almost the same time. I'm very familiar with what we do in the arena of the Department of Surgery and in the surgical disciplines. The UCI Health Surgery team performs almost 14,000 operations procedures a year to help many patients who need our help. We're renowned for delivering leading-edge care and training and education to surgeons throughout the nation. We were on the cutting edge, no pun intended, of minimally invasive surgery, allowing us to provide that care without the rehab and recuperation that was often necessary back in the 70s and 80s. In colon and rectal surgery, my area alone, there are over 110 applicants for every one training position that we have. In general surgery, there are over 700 applicants for 6 training programs. So you can understand that what we're doing is on the cutting edge. Although it might seem that robotics and other technologies that we all hear about reduce the need for donors like your loved ones to help train these individuals, in fact, the opposite is true. It turns out there's more to practice, more to perfect in order to provide that high-quality, compassionate care. Today's surgical trainees not only have to learn how to do the operation the way we did it back in the 1970s and 80s when I trained, but also the way we do it today in the 20-teens. So they have to learn multiple techniques and multiple procedures. Silent teachers, your loved ones, serve as a bridge between technology and innovation and the patient that we take care of. Your loved ones are excellent teachers. Because of them, surgeries that we perform every day in our medical center, throughout the community, throughout the country, throughout the world, are safer and outcomes are better. There's no question about that. When I completed my training in 1990, I thought I had learned a lot during the previous decade of my training, but I was only getting started. as the 1990s and the new millennium were the 2 decades that ushered in minimally invasive surgery throughout the world. Again, we were lucky, I was lucky to be at the right place at the right time, to be on the leading edge of that innovation. And that was in no small part due to the opportunity that our silent teachers afforded us to perfect these challenging techniques for now the benefit of thousands and soon to be hundreds of thousands of patients since that time. So I really want to acknowledge the great gift that your loved ones made and the significant impact that it has had today and for the future to come. Thank you again for joining with UCI Health to celebrate your loved ones' contributions to smarter healthcare.
Thank you so much, Dean Stamos. Really appreciated that. My name is Haitham Afara. I'm a first-year medical student, and I'll be one of the student MCs for today's ceremony. Next, I'd like to introduce Chaplain Patrick Thompson. Chaplain Patrick Thompson is an ordained pastor in the Presbyterian Church. Spiritual care at the UCI Health, it's a crucial element to healthcare that helps humanize the medical environment. Chaplain Thompson's completed clinical pastoral education and oversees volunteer staff of clergy, chaplain interns, ministers, and lay religious leaders who assist in the care of patients, families, and even the staff at UCI Health. Please join me in welcoming Chaplain Thompson for a moment of meditation.
I first want to say how grateful I am to be here and to be a part of this ceremony that honors your loved ones. Throughout Scripture, we find that God is a giver. He gives strength, He gives grace and glory, and He gives what is good. And today we get to experience God the giver, because today we celebrate that which is good and honoring. Today we celebrate the extraordinary gift of love and of heart and of soul. Before we move forward in this ceremony, I'd like us to pause for a moment of silence and reflect on our loved ones, and for students to reflect on these silent teachers and their impact. And I'll close that time with a short prayer. Let's pause now in silence. Gracious Creator, Almighty God, we come today to remember those people who are dear to us and who have left a lasting impression on our lives. We honor the women and men who decided in life to donate their body after death so as to help strengthen and sustain the life of others. They are our silent teachers. And we thank you for the unselfish gift of themselves and the generosity of their last act in the donation of their body to continue making a difference in this world. God, each of our donors has a story that will continue on for years to come, and their story in many ways will affect someone, and that someone will go on and make a difference in our society today and beyond. And behind all the nerves and muscles of these silent teachers, there is a soul and spirit behind it. And that soul, that spirit is why we are here today. And we thank them with our presence here, keeping them alive in our hearts. God, thank you for placing in their hearts a desire to give of themselves for the purpose of science and research. What a gift of love for humanity. For their gift, God, we give you thanks. Amen.
Thank you so much, Kelton, for that. That was beautiful. My name is Daniel Hike. I am a first-year medical student as well. I will be your other student host today.
And next up, speaking today, we have the special privilege of introducing Dr. Jamie Wickenheiser. Dr. Jamie Wickenheiser, he's the Associate Professor in the Department of Anatomy and Neurobiology. He serves as the course director for both medical gross anatomy and embryology and the surgical anatomy elective. He also serves as the program director for the UCI Summer Anatomy Academy, and Daniel and I as first-year medical students, and we also have many other first-year medical students throughout the audience. We just completed our first-year anatomy course, and of course a special thank you to all of the donors, and as well as Dr. Wickenheiser for being a fantastic professor. And we'll give him a round of applause.
Oh, well, it's an honor to be here. Hard to go into detail. We do on a daily basis. What we do is, something we prep these individuals to be the best they can be. And quite frankly, I can't do all this without you. That's what it comes down to. I've been training medical students for 20 years. I figured the 20-year anniversary meant they would probably put my name on the side of the building. That didn't happen. Still not there. Would have been a nice gift. I like to plant seeds sometimes. So they think about this. Gosh, we could name this after someone. Oh, that Wickenheiser character keeps coming up. I feel like I'm following Dr. Stamos around too. We're both Case Western Reserve graduates. After that, we both went to UCLA. And after that, now we're here at UCI. We have great leadership here, from the dean's office down to all the individual course directors. But what I'm really here to talk about today is how important the subject of anatomy really is. So it really doesn't matter what medical field you go into. What medicine really is, or what anatomy is medicine 101. I know the physiology director and some of the other directors are, well, no, don't forget about us. When you think about medicine, though, we think about anatomy. That's what it comes down to. So the 20 years I've been doing this, I've seen a lot of changes, other ways of helping increase the retention of the information that we go over. Every year I'm blessed to have just over 100 new students, the best of the bunch. They come in primed, ready to go. They have school going on for about a month, and then they run into me. Oh, I'm just a really easy guy to get along with. I'm very fair with the students, but they know from day one I'm all about business. And that business is creating the best doctors possible. I don't believe in creating good doctors. I want them great. They're going to serve all of you. They're going to serve all of us. And I believe their training is just as important as when they see patients on a day-to-day basis. Basically, it goes hand in hand. They're training with how they're going to treat all of us one day. I train primarily the first-year medical students, and then I do a lot of surgical training with primarily the fourth-year students right before they go on to residency. So I get to see them as they progress through the system. And it is nice to see them on day one, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and that month later, it's work. It's work. The way we teach anatomy is, the one way of looking at it is, I can assign the best textbook, the best atlas, all the fanciest images. We now have virtual reality. But the reality is those are supplements to what we do. If I did not have your help, your support for mom, dad, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles that were willing to donate to us so that I can do my job to the best of my abilities. It'd be hard to say what comes out. Sure, the students are going to eventually graduate. They're going to become residents. Hands-on experience is the best way to go. But there's a point where you have to learn the basics. Okay? When we teach clinical anatomy in the sense where the students, they learn a ton of structures. Okay? But we really focus on what happens when those structures go bad. The field of anatomy is something that will stay with them forever, to the day they retire. Okay? Anatomy, as I mentioned earlier, is medicine 101. Okay? Whether you're a medical doctor, physical therapist, occupational therapist, physician's assistant, the bread and butter of our field is anatomy. Plain and simple. And to train them to their best of our abilities and give them the education they deserve so they can go on and serve us to the best of their abilities, it starts on day one. And again, I cannot do this without you. So they spend about 6 to 7 months with me. We go over just about everything you can imagine. Again, why things go bad, what is normal, what is variation. They say the game of football is a game of inches. Medicine is really a game, or anatomy is a game of millimeters. We hear all the time, we read about it in the news. This individual, if it just would have been 2 millimeters to the left, they wouldn't be with us today. So what we do in anatomy, and what you can't get out of a textbook, fancy atlas, even virtual reality, okay, which again are supplements, is to show these individuals what reality really is. We focus on structures in relationships to others, because a book can't give us that. It gives us a general understanding where things should be sitting, but even the textbooks are only about 65% accurate. So we have to be in there. We have to show these trainees what reality really is. And that's through you, your loved ones. Now, I can tell you, it's kind of selfish of us to look at it in a sense that, you don't get to spend time with your loved one anymore. They're with us, okay? We treat them like family. We take care of them, we respect them, and we learn so much from them. That's the bottom line. The students, they don't know the names. They know about them, know their occupations, age, some of the more standard standard things, but not their names. My students will actually see all of them, all the individuals that we see there. I don't assign a group to one person for the entire year. They rotate. They meet all of your family members. But again, this is how they have to see things. We don't get to work with just one type of person every day. We got to see the variation, differences in people. But at the end of the day, who are the best anatomy instructors? Those are the individuals who donate to us. Doesn't matter how many years of experience I have. Doesn't matter the individuals I've worked in the past, and I've worked with some of the best. One of my former colleagues, named Dr. Clemente, he was at the UCLA Medical School from the day they opened. He stayed there for 60 years. I've ran into people at dinner, out of the blue, that have overheard me talk about Dr. Clemente or something about medicine. And they'll come, hey, I was trained by Dr. Clemente 30 years ago. And it's just fascinating to hear the stories. And what they say is, I remember anatomy. I really do. It was a rite of passage for us. And we really worked hard, but it's more than the work. It's respect and understanding to know where these individuals came from. Like I said earlier, I feel selfish to some degree that I get to spend my time now with individuals, your loved ones, that you no longer can see. But believe me, their memories live with you. Nothing but love and respect for the ones who have always donated to us. As I said earlier too, we treat them like family. So when it comes down to it, thanks just really isn't enough. This is the least we could do. And we're happy to provide this for you. I want you to talk to my students. I want you to hear their stories. They're the best of the bunch. Like I said, every year I get just over 100 students, top candidates. We have students that are pretty darn good that did not make the cut, unfortunately. But these 106 students you have here today, I'm proud to have trained them. But again, their training hasn't ended here. We think of anatomy as the main course, 6 or 7 months. But the subject does not end there. We will see this second year to some degree. We start talking about more pathology. Third year, when they start rotating through their surgical clerkships, we have to go over this information again. And then when they start to specialize, mainly surgery, because those are the ones I usually spend most of my time with. But you don't have to be a surgeon to have to understand this information. Until they retire, anatomy is going to be with them. But again, we have to train them to the best of our abilities, and we have to train them the right way. And it all came from you. So from myself, on behalf of my students, we thank you for allowing us to learn the body the way it should be. And when one of the things is going back to reading everything from a book, an atlas. Those are just two-dimensional images. We have to know everything from 3 dimensions. So in parting, I could say that if you knew of someone who was trained by way of a book or an atlas, get a second opinion. Comes down to that, really. To be properly trained, we do what we do. We respect the individuals. They are the best anatomy instructors. So again, thank you. We appreciate your gift. We do not waste anything. The knowledge, again, it continues on and on. But again, thanks is just not enough. I've done a lot of these ceremonies, and it comes to a point where what else can we do for you to show you our appreciation? It's hard to say. I don't know if there could be many, many things that we could do. I just don't know. But I wake up every day excited to do what I do. I couldn't sleep last night because I'm just excited to be here and share these moments and how we approach their training. These students really work their behind off. There's no doubt about it. First year's almost over. A couple more years left to go. Match day's right around the corner. I can tell you from my own experience that it goes by fast. So students, don't forget your anatomy. You won't have the opportunity to do that. So it's been a real honor. It does not matter what medical school I've taught at. Like I said, 20 years teaching, but 7 years here at UCI, I wouldn't change a thing. We keep adding to the way we do things to better train these students. So when you're looking for a doc, you see they're a UCI graduate, you should be proud. We really worked hard to give them everything, and it's more than just me. It's everyone. It's from the administration down. We have hundreds of individuals that are a part of their training, and you're not going to find anyone that says, well, anatomy isn't really that important. It may be biochemistry or something. I'll say, biochemistry is really important, but we like to razzle some of the other course directors and keep them honest, if you will. But again, I can't thank you enough for everything that you have brought to this program, to my students, your future doctors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wickenheiser, for those thoughtful words on behalf of the entire School of Medicine. I'd like to introduce Dr. Smith. To provide a perspective from surgical education, please welcome to the podium Dr. Brian Smith. Dr. Smith is an associate clinical professor of surgery, the director of the general surgery residency program at the UCI School of Medicine. He also serves as the chief of surgical services at the VA Long Beach Healthcare System. Please put your hands together.
Good morning, Dean Stamos, distinguished faculty and guests, and class of 2021. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Brooks, for the opportunity to speak to the family members of our Willed Body program. I'm humbled by the opportunity to express my sincere and heartfelt appreciation to them and their loved ones for the ultimate gift, the gift of education to humanity. Generosity manifests itself in a variety of forms. For most of us, generosity is a virtue that translates to the giving of material, goods, or money. However, very few people are generous with something that is truly priceless, in this case, themselves. The knowledge of human anatomy is a foundational knowledge upon which all physicians build their understanding of human ailments. Knowledge of normal human anatomy gives physicians a point of reference, a compass of sorts, a North Star. The study of human anatomy harkens back to the Egyptians as far back as 1600 BC and the era of papyrus, and significantly advanced with the ancient Greeks around 480 BC. Back in that time, unclaimed bodies comprised the only source of specimens by which scientists could further advance their own knowledge. In the 12th century, medical education began to mandate the study of human anatomy for all students. But it was Leonardo da Vinci in the late 1400s that truly advanced our understanding of human anatomy through detailed dissection of deceased patients, till he was banned by doing so by the Pope at the time, Leo X. Since that time, anatomic dissection has continued to evolve to what we have today, a voluntary program that allows people to donate their remains to science and education. I want to emphasize the donation in that sentence. As we circle back to the generosity involved with the ultimate priceless donation, I would like family and loved ones to consider this. Suppose just one willed body educated me in my surgical anatomy class. Over the course of my career, I'll operate on approximately 22,000 patients. Now, as a surgical educator, I'll help educate approximately 6 new residents per year, and collectively, they will help nearly 132,000 patients over the course of their careers. I'll train approximately 270 surgeons over the span of my professional education career. Collectively, this will allow me to translate the knowledge from one willed body to affect just shy of 800,000 patients over the course of my career alone. In other words, more than 750,000 people will potentially benefit from that one willed body that served to educate me in my anatomy course. This, I would submit, is the definition of the ultimate gift to humanity. Not long ago, the methodology for learning was see one, do one, teach one. These days in the surgical lab, our residents learn critical maneuvers that allow them to prepare for emergency situations prior to being in them. For example, learning how to provide an emergent surgical airway on a human cadaver in the form of a cricothyrotomy allows surgeons to save a life when under the time constraints and duress of a dying patient. They learn how to quickly, safely, and efficiently perform a thoracotomy to relieve cardiac tamponade or cross-clamp the aorta in bleeding trauma patients. And meticulous dissection through the embryologic and bloodless planes of the cadaver colon allows surgeons to learn how to remove a colon laparoscopically with minimal tissue trauma and bleeding. Because of your family members' generosity, we're able to teach surgical trainees operations in a controlled, non-stressful environment. Imagine being able to practice a life-saving procedure and then be called to perform it on a very sick patient and do it well. That is what this program does to directly save lives. So with this perspective on the importance of willed bodies to the education of our future surgeons, I want to once again express my heartfelt appreciation to those that have made the ultimate donation, to their families, and to their loved ones. Your gifts to your fellow mankind inspire me to use my knowledge and skills with the reverence, dignity, and respect worthy of their memories. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Next, we want to recognize the tremendous work that Mrs. Boonja Yu and the many, many volunteers of the Somong Society have done to increase the awareness of whole body donation to a medical school within the Korean American community. When Mrs. Yu reached out to me close to 10 years ago, she said that she wanted to increase awareness amongst Korean Americans about their options. She wanted them to know about the option of organ donation for patient transplant, but she also wanted them to be aware of the option of whole body donation to a medical school. As a result of that, I was very enthusiastic to collaborate with her and the many volunteers of Somong Society, and as a result of that, we have seen just an incredible uptick in Korean American enrollment that, quite frankly, would not have happened without her and the many, many people who have shared this program on our behalf. And I would also just like to add that it has been always a tremendous pleasure to participate in the many events that Mrs. Yu and the Somong Society have sponsored for me to share this important information. At this time, please welcome UCI's Chief Global Affairs Officer, Dr. Victoria Jones. Dr. Jones on campus oversees global strategy, campus coordinator, and diplomacy related to global and international engagement at UCI.
Thank you so much. I'd also like to introduce Haewon Shin, who is the UC Irvine Korea Relations Director and a biomedical engineer herself. I want to confirm the statistic, 1%. Only 1% choose to participate in something that could impact 250,000 lives. If we look at this room, about 600 people here, if this was the average American gathering, only 6 people in this room would participate in this program. 6 people from this entire audience. What a special group we have assembled. What unique and wonderful people have chosen to participate. Truly, the 1%. Thank you. I'm here to present, on behalf of Chancellor Howard Gilman, who couldn't be here today, a letter and gift to honor Mrs. Yu and her work with the Somong Society and the Korean community, a community that's a great partner to us here at UC Irvine, and also a connection with the great universities in Korea who are our partners Dean Stamos and a group of our faculty traveled with Haewon, Shin, and I to Korea just last week, where we were building partnerships with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Family and Equality, as well as top medical schools in the country. This is so important to us, and for those of you in the room from the Somang Society, thank you for all that you do with us here at UC Irvine. I'll now read the letter from Chancellor Gilman. Dear Mrs. Yu, on behalf of the University of California, Irvine, I am delighted to congratulate you on being recognized with the Volunteer Outreach Award by the UCI Willed Body Program and the UCI School of Medicine class of 2021. Thanks to your steadfast advocacy of UCI and the Willed Body Program, the Korean community has become one of our greatest treasures in providing whole body medical education to our students. Last year, fully 44% of all of our whole body donations were from the Korean community, compared with just 2% in 2008 when you began your partnership with our medical school. Your generosity with your time and talent over the last decade has helped hundreds of medical students become better qualified and better trained physicians by increasing their ability to comprehensively study the whole body. You and the Somang Society deserve much credit for all you have done to increase awareness of and support for the Willed Body Program. Again, I extend my personal thanks and congratulations. Sincerely, Howard Gilman, Chancellor. We now have a small gift, a token of appreciation on behalf of Chancellor Gilman, all leadership of the University of California, Irvine, and the UCI community. The anteater is the mascot of the University of California, Irvine, and this crystal anteater on the base, and the base reads, in recognition of Boon Ja-yu, co-founder, founder, and chairperson, Somang Society, thank you for touching so many lives, presented by Chancellor Howard Gilman.
오늘 특별히 한국 분 또 가족들에게 이 자리를 빌려서 진심으로 감사를 드리면서 오늘 주신 이런 좋은 감사패는 제가 오늘 받는 게 아니라 우리 한국 여러분들이 도네이션 하신 우리 한국 분들과 함께 받으면서 이 기쁨과 감사를 하나님께 영광을 돌립니다. 네, 감사합니다. I am honored and humbled to accept this award on behalf of the Somang Society. I want to give a very special thanks to UCI for showing your appreciation to Koreans who are willing to donate their bodies. We are also grateful for the family members who respected their loved ones' final wishes. About 10 years ago, I founded the Somang Society to educate the Korean community about end-of-life issues. I had the chance to hear Director Mark Bruce speak about the UCI Willed Body Program at a workshop. When I learned there were only 3 Korean applicants out of 103 total applicants, my heart dropped. I had a desire to inform our community about the value of donate our bodies. I believe the people in our Korean community didn't apply to donate their bodies simply because they didn't have such an opportunity was there. The Somang Society translated their application into Korean and began to educate people about the importance of the Willed Body program. We had a positive response from our Korean community that far passed my expectation. I was surprised to hear the last year 270 Korean applied, making up 44% of total application. There are many reasons why the Korean American community positively responded, but the most of the donors had a simple story. I heard over and over from donors that they immigrated to the United States and reached their American dreams. They were grateful for the opportunity to give back, to help healthcare professionals to save lives. I want to remind students to study hard. If you continue to work hard, you will have the honor of saving someone's life. On behalf of those who donated their body, in closing, I want to share from William Shakespeare. The meaning of life is to find your purpose. The purpose of is to give it away. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. So next up, we have two of our first-year medical students named Emily Frisch and Helen Joyce, and they'd like to share with all of you some of their short reflections. So please welcome them to the stage.
Hello, my name is Emily Frisch, and I'm honored to speak to you all about my experience with the Willed Body program as a first-year medical student. I know that everyone here today has helped someone at some time in their life, but I am privileged enough to work with the individuals through the Willed Body program who have continued to give after a long and productive life. What an impressive gift it is to help someone without any expectation of return. It is hard to measure the generosity of the donors and of the entire Willed Body program, but I hope to acknowledge that generosity as a medical student here at UC Irvine. Anatomy has always been a part of my family. My dad has been a physiology and anatomy professor at Chapman University for 35 years. From an early age, he would bring me to his lectures, but I had to wait until I was a young adult to get into lab. My mom's first experience with anatomy was here at UC Irvine School of Medicine 30 years ago. She learned anatomy in the exact same lab as I did. The clinical correlates that we learn from the donor bodies are things that she uses in her internal medicine practice today. I can't even begin to emphasize how important anatomy is as a physician and how this experience has come full circle for me. Though we work so closely with the donors, we don't know much about the lives of those whose bodies we use. The names are redacted, and there's a brief medical record included. But we are left to speculate on how the fractures were made, or how well the heart valve replacements worked. What we don't have to guess at is their generosity and contributions to the medical knowledge of future doctors. So I would like to give you a glimpse into a week of anatomy at UC Irvine, led by Dr. Wickenheiser. We know him as Dr. Wiki, which is a fitting name since he's the Wikipedia of anatomy. Our class is split into 4 lab groups distinguished by color. I was in the green group. Each color dissects 1 and 4 lectures. About 2 times a week, we have a 3-hour session where one lab group teaches their dissection to the other groups. This unique course structure provides an excellent opportunity for us to balance dissecting, learning, and teaching. For me and my colleagues, anatomy is a very personal experience, and our study underscores the social fabric that holds all of us together. We are all pretty much the same. We all have a heart and a brain, but there are also so many important and unique differences between us. And this is played out every day in the anatomy lab. For example, an examination of the auriculotemporal nerve, we could expect the nerve to hug the middle meningeal artery. We just had a practical on that. But quite often, that particular artery may not look like the textbook. This renders the Willed Body program essential to our learning. Appreciating the key differences between individuals, both outside and within, is a crucial component of being a compassionate physician. Many medical schools and universities are moving towards pre-dissected bodies and even electronic versions to learn anatomy. These resources are good for superficial understanding, but nothing compares to working with donors. The tactile sensations are simply unparalleled. The anatomy lab's stated purpose is to expose medical students to the physical nature of the human body. But it does so much more than that. It is a rite of passage that facilitates fellowship amongst students and physicians. My classmates and I are so grateful for the enriching experiences provided by the generosity of our donors through the Willed Body program. Thank you so much.
My name is Helen Joyce, and I'm a first-year medical student as well. Before starting medical school, I was afraid to take anatomy. I wondered how walking into the lab would feel. How would I respond to the donors? Would the room remind me of lost loved ones? Would I be clumsy with a scalpel? And how would it make me feel about my own mortality? The experience of working with the donors is hard to describe. It was like I'd spent my whole life looking down at the sea, watching the waves and the tides and the patterns of salt, but never realizing that everything in front of me was just the water's surface, the skin of the ocean. Anatomy lab was like slipping underwater for the first time. We left behind our books, our phones, our interruptions. The most I ever took into the room was a pen and a paper. At first, I heard 2 competing voices in my head. One was focused on the work, on the anatomy, on the puzzle of vessels and muscles and bone. The other voice had to do with my reaction to the donors, with my human kinship to them, with the way that my eyes, in the middle of a dissection, might pause on a donor's fingernail polish. There's no question that working with the donors could be intensely personal, but with practice, I learned to narrow my concentration and submerge myself in the work at hand. Doing the work with our hands was the difference between looking at a flat paper map of a place and actually living there, surrounded by it. In the beginning, you're a little lost and overwhelmed, but with time and repetition, you latch onto a few landmarks. You learn your first street names and neighborhoods. You begin to appreciate not only the outer urgent beauty, but the concealed beauty of an inner logic. At some point, I wondered, if I could write a thank you note to a donor, what would I say? I hope it doesn't sound too blunt, but I would say thank you for letting me see inside your body. I'll never know you. I'll never know your personality. I'll never know the many ways your friends and family remember you and love you. But I tried to know your human body. I'd want to tell them how beautiful it was and that sometimes it was really hard work, but that it always felt important to us, that their gift had sincerely mattered. I'd want to thank them for trusting us. There are many ways to see a human body, to To a tailor, a body as a beginning, raw material to be flattered. To a dancer, a body as a tool, a vessel, a voice. To a military general, a body might be an asset or a threat. But what is a human body to a physician? My own notions had been vague and literally superficial. My knowledge was all theory. But there's nothing theoretical about actually holding an actual heart. There's no way to prepare for it, how tidy and how conical it is, how its surface is both soft and firm, both smooth and rumpled. Only through the donors could we begin seeing a human body with the eyes of a physician. I remember last October sitting at a traffic light, watching someone cross the street and suddenly thinking, I can see his kidneys. I know where they are. I walked into lab last summer worried that the dissections would make me feel too near and too far from myself. But neither one happened. Instead, the donors taught us about the cohesiveness of all people. It's a permanent gift. It will be the bedrock for every interaction we will have with our future patients. It was the privilege of learning the tangible things that make us, us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily and Helen, for those very poignant and beautiful expressions. At this time, we have two very special guests that I'd like to introduce this morning. We have Jeff Cohen and Lisa Russell and Mary Jane Russell. Jeff's mom, Lois Cohen, and father, Francis Cohen, both passed in 2017, and both of them were donated to the medical school. Jeff has agreed this morning very kindly to share a little bit about his parents and their decision to become donors, and then after Jeff, we'll have Lisa and Mary Jane come forward. Their mother is Eleanor Russell, and Eleanor came into the program last year as well. Lisa sent us a very, very nice tribute of her mom, and she was kind enough to be willing to share that with us this morning. So please welcome first Jeff Cohen.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And it's my pleasure to be here today, not only to honor my folks, Francis and Lois Cohen, but to everyone who has donated their body to the UCI Medical Donation Program. It's a wonderful, obviously a wonderful program. But to just back up a little bit and talk about my folks briefly, give you a little history of their lives. Both of their parents, my grandparents, came from Europe. They were immigrants. My father's father was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, and my grandmother on my father's side was born in London, England. They both migrated into the United States through Ellis Island, and my parents were born here in the U.S. Kind of losing my spot here a little bit. Sorry about that. But my father joined the Army at the age of 18, and he was honorably discharged at the age of 20. He attended the University of Pittsburgh and graduated as an industrial engineer. And so as he was trying to find a career job, he met my mother in a clothing store where he was buying some new clothes. And they met, and 3 years later, they got married. So my father, at that point, they were living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My dad found work in Cincinnati, Ohio, with the Procter & Gamble company. We've all heard of them. And he helped develop the Duncan Hines cake mix line back in the 50s. And so he would tell me stories when I was a young boy. He'd come home from work and he had a bad day, and he'd say things like, well, on the production line today, the boxes stopped going down the line, but the cake mix kept coming down. And I guess it would make quite a mess. They'd have to clean that up and that sort of thing. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom. I have two brothers, an older brother, a younger brother. And so Mom stayed home and raised us. And in 1968, my father found a job out here in California, working for North American Rockwell. So our whole family moved out here to California, which I think is a good move from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I like it a lot better out here, I'll tell you that for sure. And so Dad did well. He invested his money in property and that sort of thing, and they lived good lives. Mom and Dad, they lived great lives. They got to travel all over the world. They've seen many other foreign countries, and they lived a good life. And both passed away last year at the age of 89. They made it up there pretty well, I would say. Some mornings I get up and wonder if I'll ever make it that far, I'll tell you that for sure. And so my folks made the decision to donate their bodies to UCI quite a few years ago, back in the 80s, I believe. And they strongly believed that once they passed on, their bodies could serve the medical science program at UCI. My parents wanted to give others the opportunity to have better lives through themselves, to improve healthier living for mankind, and I believe that they have. And both my parents taught me the value of life and the human body beyond life. And that's why I'm going to donate my body as well to UCI. And as you can well guess, I'm just dying to get there one of these days. So I also want to say thank you to UCI for giving the people the opportunity to contribute to the science of life by donating their bodies. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Our mother, Sandy Russell, gave her body to the UCI Willed Body Program in November. I would like to read a letter my sister and I wrote following her death, and I would also like to read a note from her social worker at the dialysis center. Eleanor Sandy Sanford Mathewson Russell was born on May 14, 1939. She passed away on November 29, 2017, following a brief illness with Goodpasture syndrome, a rare autoimmune disorder, at the age of 78. She was born to Eleanor Russell and Ken Mathewson in Wilmington, Delaware. She was raised at the Sunny Hills Boarding School in Hocassin, Delaware, which was run by her grandmother, Ellen Sowen, and where her mother was a teacher. When she was 13, she moved to Madison, Wisconsin with her mother and stepfather, Ray Russell. She married Paul Russell on February 27, 1960. They lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and had two daughters, Lisa and Mary Jane. They moved to Wausau, Wisconsin in 1971 and lived on a hobby farm called Strawberry Acres. Sandy cared for numerous foster daughters and spent many hours canning and making jams and jellies. In addition to the large garden, there were also Scottish Highlander sheep, chickens, dogs, multiple cats, and even one raccoon named Black-Eyed Susan. She insisted we use flower names for all the farm animals. She started Sands Country and spent many weekends at country folk art shows all across the country with Paul selling her minis. Sandy and Paul retired to North Fort Myers, Florida, where they made many friends. After Paul passed away in 2001, she spent many summers back in Wisconsin with her daughter Lisa and beloved grandchildren Cassandra and Matthew. She moved to Laguna Woods, California in 2012 and spent many weekends taking the train to see her daughter Mary Jane in Solana Beach. She loved to sit by the ocean and she loved to read, and it was not unusual for her to read a book almost every single day. She was preceded in death by her mother, father, stepfather, and husband Paul. She was also preceded in death by her namesake, her uncle Sanford Sowen. She is survived by her brother Ray Russell, sister Nan McNamara, daughters Lisa and Mary Jane, and grandchildren Cassandra and Matthew, and his wife Nicole. She is also now survived by a great-granddaughter, Haley Eleanor, who was born in February. Sandy was an artist, book lover, and a compassionate and caring wife, mother, grandmother, and friend to many. She spent many hours creating and sending cards to her many friends and relatives all across the world. She was known at the post office for always asking for the pretty stamps. This passion was repaid by her friends and family who sent her over 500 cards during her 3-month illness. Her laughter, storytelling, and kindness will be missed by everyone she knew. We ask that everyone pay it forward and do something nice for a person or organization in their community that is in need, which is something Sandy did on a daily basis. In her final act of caring, she donated her body to the University of California Willed Body Program so that others may learn from her. The following is a letter that was written to her on her last day of dialysis by the social worker. Dear Mrs. Russell, it has been truly a pleasure and a privilege to know you. You have inspired me with your courage, selflessness, and concern for others. So many people try to live as long as they can out of fear of dying. You have chosen to accept your fate on your own terms, which is so courageous. Your decision to leave your body for scientific research is also remarkable and inspirational. My husband and I have decided to follow your lead and do the same when we leave our bodies. You must have been an awesome mother. I will miss you dearly, but I'm thankful that if I have been your social worker, I will remember our time together. With sincere love and gratitude, Kim. My sister and I are very thankful for the Willed Body Program. Our mother was so pleased to have this option at the end of her life, which she actually only found out about 3 weeks before she died. The staff from the program that came to her home on her passing were the most compassionate and respectful people we have come across. This made it much easier for us to say goodbye to her. And we've encouraged everyone to consider body donation. My sister and I are both in scientific fields, and we are so glad we were able to have this conversation with our mom, and would encourage everyone to have the same conversation with their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the families for their perspective and words on their loved ones that made the gift. I would like to introduce Dr. Johanna Shapiro, who is the director of the program in Medical Humanities and Arts. She's a professor of family medicine as well as a psychologist and medical educator. She focuses her research and scholarship on the socialization process of medical education, with a special focus on the impact of training on student empathy and on doctor-patient relationship. Please welcome Dr. Shapiro to the podium to provide closing remarks.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm really honored to be here with you. I've had the privilege of working with the director and the students in the anatomy course for many years, and during that time, I've come to realize what a powerfully impactful experience anatomy is. Many people, in talking about anatomy, have used the phrase a rite of passage. And I have that same phrase written down right on my own notes. And I think we use this word, this phrase, because there is something sacred about entering the profession of medicine, and anatomy is the first step toward the consecration of the physician into this profession. And it's not just students in the anatomy class that are affected by the experience. Physicians 20, 30, 40 years into their careers will still stop and reflect with awe and reverence on the experiences they had as first-year medical students in anatomy. So I would like to take just a few minutes to share some thoughts about what is it about the anatomy experience that is so significant? I think the answer lies in the essential role of the donors as teachers and guides. So What do students learn from donors? Of course, as you have heard from our anatomy professor and from our surgeons, they learn factual knowledge about the human anatomical structure and organization. And this is very important so that when they get to be real doctors, they know the difference between a heart and a liver, and we all appreciate this. But there are other equally important lessons that students learn as well. First, working with donors teaches a lesson in humility to students. Students put in an incredible amount of effort to master a massive amount of information in anatomy, and there is always more to learn, as any of the students here will tell you. Confronted with the enormous complexity of the human body, as they learn these structures, they'll simultaneously learning a lesson about recognizing how much they will never know and how the ultimate authority, the ultimate teacher, will always be the one in front of them, whether that is the donor or a living patient. The second lesson that donors impart has to do with always treating patients with respect and ensuring their dignity and humanity at all costs. How donors are treated in the anatomy lab foreshadows how patients will be treated in outpatient clinics and hospital wards. The way students learn to care for the donors with respect for their dignity, as Dr. Wickenheiser said, treating them as family, lays down patterns for how they will behave toward living patients. Now, the third lesson is one that we might not expect, but I think is one of the most important. And that has to do with the power of connection and caring in medicine. Despite the fact that the donor is no longer a living person, in the anatomy lab, you can sometimes, at certain moments, feel what the philosopher Martin Buber called an I-thou, or a human-to-human connection with donors. I have been surprised and moved when a student has told me that during a particular dissection, she's reached out and taken the donor's hand so that the donor will not feel alone. Or when I learn that another student, late at night in the anatomy lab, reviewing structures for an upcoming exam, starts talking to the donor about his hopes and fears for a life in medicine. Or when I hear a student wondering why a particular donor has pink nail polish on her fingers, but purple nail polish on her toes. Or when I hear yet another student wish he knew why a particular donor has a broken heart and the name Emily tattooed on his forearm. These moments remind students of the donor's humanity, as well as the power of connecting with and caring about not only the diseases that people have, but the people themselves who will be their future patients. Now, the final lesson is one that has been alluded to many, many times this morning, but cannot be sufficiently emphasized, and that is the lesson of service and altruism. Donors are the best role models students will ever have for learning about acts of unbelievable giving without expectations of anything in return, and of putting the interests of others above those of selves. Though most students will likely never equal donors in their ultimate act of selfless generosity, they too have all chosen lives of service. And they have much to learn in this respect every time they're in the presence of their donors. Now, students know that they can never sufficiently repay the donors for all these and other lessons. But they do feel immensely grateful for the great gift they have been given. And I think what they do discover over time is that the best way to fulfill the intentions and hopes of the donors is to learn as much as they can and to carry forward in their own interactions with living patients all the many lessons the donors have offered them. Long after the anatomy course has ended, the donors still accompany the students, reminding them gently to be humble, respectful, and caring toward all patients, to be generous, and to be grateful for the privilege of giving to others as their donors gave to them. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming out. That will conclude the speaking part of this morning. We have Daniel Hayek, who will play a postlude, and during that time, I encourage everyone to talk. We have lots of med students, talk to other families, and we have food in all the corners of the room, so please help yourself to that. And thank you again to everyone for coming out, and thank you to Mark Brooks for organizing the event. Thank you.